Okay, time to build another model. But before I talk about the model I'll be building, I want to talk about how I acquired it. So I have a few friends of mine, a couple that they've shown interest in my models and interest in building models of their own. And one night I'm sitting at my desk and I get a video call from them, and they're at a thrift store and there are tons of models. Large kits, 178 scale and 144th, and a whole bunch of kits, like dozens, and they're mostly planes. So I was telling them that I wasn't really interested, but they were basically showing me all the planes as they perused kit, shown one at a time, and I was telling them basically buy what you want, buy some kits, get a few. They were cheap, really cheap. They were $10 a box. Some really, really good kits, some lower quality kits, but everything was just $10. So they bought a whole bunch of kits. Nothing really caught my eye for me to say buy this for me, but I kind of forgot about it. But as it so happened, the next day I was going to be passing by the area of that store. So I said I'd drop in just to see what they had, just in case they had anything else. And more importantly, they maybe gotten other kits that I can look at. Not too surprisingly, they were all gone. At least when I asked, I couldn't find them on the shelves. I asked one of the attendants and they said, listen, those kits just flew off. They were all gone the next day. But then he said, just as I was about to leave, he says, I think there were a few more that they had kept aside because they were in bags and they were with the cashier. So sure enough, I went to the cashier and they had a whole basket full of these things. And what they were bags with more than one kit, and these were $7 a piece. I went through it really quickly. This one caught my eye because it F-104 Starfighter, a nice Canadian plane, and I picked it up. It's $7, like $2.33 a kit. But when I opened it up, I found it had a Mirage, the Starfighter, and another Japanese plane over here that doesn't even have the box. As you can see, somebody had these kits, took them out of the box, and just packaged them. There are decals and, box covers and things like that. So, anyhow, this couple wants to get together to build models, and, I show them how I build it, go through some, the process and things like that. And I wanted something that was really just that, something we can do really, really quickly. So I'm going to be building this one next. I'm going to bring it over to their place. And as you can see, it's a nice little kit. The instructions are here. Really old decals. I'm hoping I can salvage a few of them. And, just a few sprues with kits. It's got the clear and everything. And again, the idea is to just go down there for one day and do as much as I possibly can and do a quick build on it. So we'll see what turns out. I did some, as always, I did some searches online to see different paint schemes, and I picked basically I want to do this one here just like they have on the box, or had on the box. This is the back of the box, something like this, so I can use these decals, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, well, I got together with my friends this weekend for a day, and we a build day, and we made some progress, as you can see over here, and I'm quite impressed with this little, Matchbox Dassault kit. The only thing I know about Matchbox is the little dinky toys that they had as a kid, and I think they still make. But never built a Matchbox kit, and I must say, like I said, I'm quite impressed. Very good fit, just about everywhere. Yes, there's some putting required, obviously, but I'm trying to do a really good job with the seams, so that's why I'm doing putting. And if somebody didn't do it, to be honest, this is the only area that really needed a lot of putting so far. And I've got most of the parts already in. The remaining parts are the wheels and things like that. So I'm quite impressed. Painted the pilot, obviously, and the seat, and put them in beforehand so I can mask that off later on and spray airbrush the kit. The only thing is, it's if you can see, the pilot is quite, he seems a little small for the kit. I don't know if that's the actual aircraft. I'm going to have to go back in and check that. But that means that there's a lot of room on the walls that you can see. Now, I did paint some of the walls, the interior of the cockpit there, knowing that would be the case, but I should have gone a little bit deeper. So if you can see, I can see right now there's still some blue down in the bottom there. I don't know if I can go back with a brush and paint it. But somebody who else is building this kit, you'll see, because there's a lot of room, You can actually build a pilot and then just have him inserted later, rather than, you know, putting him in on the side and putting in the other side. So I didn't do that dry fit to see how much room there would be over there, but that's something that you can do if you're building this kit. I'm going to get a little more putting required and a little more building, but so far looks really nice. Very impressed with this kit. All right, almost at the stage where I do the main body painting over here, but you know, I went through a lot of PS maneuvers, as they say, or putty sand, putty sand, putty sand, and I'm almost at the point where I'm happy with this over here. But two things I want to talk about, two mistakes I nearly made with this aircraft so far. I don't make aircraft too often, but those who do know that there's a critical step that you have to do, or in most cases you have to do, and that's to checking for the balance over here, especially, I mean, if you're going to have it weight on wheels and, you know, on the ground. So I looked at this at one point and said, oh geez, that, you know, wing in the back is really big. It's probably going to change the distribution of the weight such that when it's on the wheels, it may tip over like that. And sure enough, when I did a check, just putting, you know, my finger at the rear wheel, it was tipping over. So what I needed was some weight in the nose over here. And normally you do that check before you glue on the nose cone or whatever propellers and cowling you may have over there. But I didn't, and as I mentioned in the last video, I was lucky because there's a lot of room in this particular cockpit on this particular model, so I was able to add weight. And the way you add weight is you put little pieces of lead. Now these pieces, I basically go around garages where they put tires on and off, and they use them to balance the wheels whenever they have a tire change. So they come in these big long strips that are all together, or sometimes they're just little nodules like this and they just stick them on. Different various types. Some have big clips and it's one giant piece of lead, but I've taken a whole bunch of them and I have a whole jar full. And what I do is I break them up into sizes, you know, like this, and then I cut those up into pieces like that, and even making smaller pieces like that, which is exactly what I needed in this case, to just drop down there while I could, and then put in a little dab of epoxy so that it holds in place and doesn't move around afterwards. So that was one tip number one. You should always do that. Second thing is always look at reference photos, because as I was putting this over here, I was looking at this piece over here, and I was gonna, you know, fill in those seams. But when I looked on reference photos, as you can see, some I'm showing on the screen over here, you can see that this is really going to be, it's a separate piece that comes off and on the aircraft. So I should not be filling in those seams. So, you know, always look at reference photos, and you'll have a more accurate model in the end. Hopefully, I'm going to have that when I finish my next step. Okay, I went on YouTube to look at some reference photos, and I'll explain that in a minute. But in the meantime, I found something, so why don't you check it out? So this is the YouTube, I don't want to call it a video, it's a panable cockpit that's on YouTube. You can see the links in my notes, and basically you can pan this in any direction here. You can see off to the side. You can go full all the way to the back, see the seat, harnesses, and you can go up, you can go down, and you can find things like this for reference for this model or other models really. So it's a lot of fun to play with. It's great for detail. You can try to get even a picture of this with you know, screen capture, like I'm doing a video capture, and then print it out for a cockpit. But in my case, I'll just be doing a printout. Not this one, another one. Okay, now that you've seen that, I want to explain why I went looking for some references. Basically, I've painted the plane. I had it all you know, primed and everything, and I painted it with some silver paint. Not too crazy about the paint. This is to me a chrome silver, which I didn't want to use titanium because I used it on my last plane. I find it's a little you know, not splotchy, but sparkly. You know, not as even as I would have liked, but it's nice enough. I mean, I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to keep it as is. So one of the things I needed to do, or what I want to do, is try to put a little cockpit image in there. And I figure I can look on YouTube and, or, you know, other Google other reference photos to see if I can find something that's, you know, close enough to this aircraft that I could print out really small, and then just glue it in there with some Mod Podge or something. And so what I did is I, basically took a ruler, tried to get some rough measurements of what I needed. Look at the layout of the cockpit, because there's so many different mirages, and so many different variations, and even the color schemes. Like some countries have green cockpits and things like that. So anyhow, I found one. I think that's gonna fit. I'm gonna try to print it out and see if I can put it in there just to make it a little better. And everything else, just a few more parts to be painted, and that'll be it. Okay, so we ran into a little problem, but before I get to that, let's talk about some of the prior steps that I was mentioning. So first of all, I did put a lacquer onto this so that I could do panel line accent, and you can see some of the panel lines, they pop out a little bit more, and some of them on the bottom over here. It's hard to tell in the video, but they do pop out. You can see them a lot better than before. Now, just to reiterate that, the steps involves basically you put lacquer paint, because that's an enamel and you don't want to mix it with the acrylic, and then won't be able to take off the enamel without the lacquer to protect the enamel acrylic under it. So basically I spray painted the lacquer, but you have to thin it down, and then I applied the panel line accent color, let it dry a bit, wait a while, and then you go in with the mineral spirits to wipe them off, to basically keep what you want and clean off the little dabs that you have there. So it worked kind of nice. And the next thing I want to talk about is basically I mentioned I went on the internet to get some reference photos of cockpits. And as you can see, I after measuring them out, I scaled them down to what size I needed, made them a little bit smaller and smaller and a little bit bigger and bigger, just so I had variance when I printed it. But you can see when you take a picture of a real cockpit, it's really, too dark and blotchy, even at a high DPI printout. So what I did was I took a generic, kind of like an animated version of a cockpit, and that you can see a lot clearer because there are fewer dials and it's not all black and everything. And what I did is I took a picture. I had to lop off the bottom using Inkscape, and then I created my own HUD, the green part, the heads-up display, because that's going to fit into that part that extends across the top there. So I'm hoping to cut down one of these. I believe I measured that this will be the best fit in there, and insert it. And then I was coming to the end. I had a few more pieces to glue, and I ran into a problem. And I couldn't find the cockpit. Now, I thought I had one with this kit when I opened it up, but sure enough, when I went back to the first segment video that I recorded, when I didn't do an unboxing, but I did an unbagging, there was no cockpit when I unbagged it. So I guess the kit never had it. Whoever, the owner who bagged everything either used it up for something else or lost it. Now, in a way, I've ran into this problem before, where I actually had a kit that I'd bought from a store where they had, bought somebody else's, used model, checked the pieces, thought it was good, and put it on the shelf, and I bought it. And then in the end, it had the wrong cockpit. So I didn't know what to do with this one, and then I said, well, let me check that old cockpit. And this is the incorrect cockpit that I had for the other kit. It was a Harrier jump jet, and this is not a Harrier. It didn't fit, not even close. But it's a very close fit with this one. I do have to lop off a bit of the front over here. And even if it's an unperfect fit, what I can do is I can slice it over here and just have the front piece, fit more or less perfectly in there, and then have this one up in the air like an open cockpit, so you won't notice the difference nearly as much. So that's what I'm going to try. I mean, it's this piece, I can't use it anyhow, so might as well give that a shot, and hopefully I can get, a good enough fit in there. So let the surgery begin. operation, as you can see, was a success. And I'm also calling this one done. Yeah, it went really well. After cutting the canopy, I did a few things on it. I didn't want to paint, all the silver areas with, masks and stuff like that. So I just, again, went around the edge with, one of those little felt paint brushes that I got off Steve, the model car minion, just to get the contour really. And I didn't want to do the lines for a number of reasons, because it would then show it's really doesn't fit one another, with the actual aircraft. So I just said this is good enough. Then I had to think about the hinge over here, and I did a few things. What I ended up taking was a little plastic from, a blister pack, right? The see-through stuff that you get containers with. And I thought it would be, clear, so it wouldn't be as obtrusive when you look at it. The only problem I had with this stuff is how to glue it. And I went through all types of glues, doing tests on a piece of sprue here to see, what would hold. And I had a lot of trouble with that. And eventually the solution turned out to be, this, 25-year-old Tester's paint, Tester's glue, the old stuff, the stuff you used to sniff as a kid. And it worked great. It just held it in place. A few other things. So I put on the decals. They all survived. Again, that decal film that I used, I'm assuming it really helped, because they were really, really old and they looked ragged. And they came out great. The thing when you do use that stuff, you have to cut out, you basically swab it all over the decal, but you have to cut the contour of the decals, because if not, that film will be, wherever you put it. So you don't want too much of that film. You just want it where the decals are. And that worked really, really great. I put in the cockpit, that, DIY decal. I ended up using the largest one I had, and it looks fine. It's not great, but it's better than having nothing there. So happy with that. The one thing I noticed about the decals was, this is the rest of the sheet. And when I chose this design, there's supposed to be like red going all around the cowling over here of these intakes. And I thought that it would be on the decal sheet, but then I realized, no, that's not on the decal sheet. So I was kind of bummed about that. That would have been nice. But then I noticed some other reference photos where some aircraft just had a little red going around the rim of that intake. And I just took a red marker and put that. It's really hard to see, but when you're up close to it, you do see it. So it's there. Aside from that, I made this, this base, a cheap tarmac, just to have something. And what I used for that was, when you get IKEA, you get these shelves. They have this kind of like a fake backing. And at one point I bought a whole bunch of these shelves, and, I have these large chunks of fake, whatever this is. This is kind of like a pressed wood or something like that, some pressed particle board. And they're great for quick bases. So basically I just, gouged in the lines that I wanted to have some, cement edges for a tarmac. Fill that in with black paint, and then roughly went over it with gray paint, craft paint, to make a quick tarmac. And I like it, it's just better than nothing. So I'm very pleased with the kit, especially for such an old kit, and that I was dubious at first. It came out really, really nice. I'm very, very impressed with this kit. Glad I got it for, $2.33. And again, I've got 2 more in the stash, and I'm not sure when I'll get to them, because I like to mix and match the types of models I make, but I'll get to them soon. Now, before I go, I also wanted to say, well, I'm going to have some more shots at the end. I want to say thanks to all the viewers over here. After putting up the Surf Hearse less than 2 weeks ago, I've had like 800 views on it and a whole bunch of subs, so it's really well received, and I really appreciate it. I just like it when, people are enjoying the videos I make. So please subscribe if you haven't, or just click the like button, and get more viewers over here to enjoy these models over here. So like I said, I'll have a few more shots at the end, and you'll see my next video.